This one I love. I'm so proud. You're doing great. So proud of you. But this one, everything he does drives me crazy.
It genuinely feels like that all the higher executives over at DC Studios, Warner Brothers Games, and specifically James Gunn himself are continuously making corporate decisions that seem to be tailor-made just to piss me off. And the news we have this time around is no exception. But regardless, welcome back true believers and all you Merry Marvelites out there, and primarily to all you DC fans, to another very interesting superhero game related video. Or more accurately, is that we recently got some brand new information straight from the mouth of the head of DC himself, of James Gunn. Which, to remind all of you, is that James Gunn isn't merely the head of DC with the current film and television projects, but rather is that he is the overarching mastermind of the entirety of DC going forward. And yes, that does also include their video game division.
So as many of you know, DC has been disconnected in film and television for a long time. And it's one of, our jobs, mine and Peter's, is to come in and make sure the DCU is connected in film, television, gaming, and animation. That the characters are consistent, played by the same actors, and it works within one story.
What? What the fuck? Now, in case you want to be fully caught up to date with the entire situation revolving around DC video games and its future, I have already made quite a few videos about this topic in the past. But, given this latest update from Gunn and WB Games as a whole, I honestly think that this decision is going to be the absolute worst direction for DC games to head towards. And in this video, I am going to thoroughly explain why. So if you're someone like me who wants to see more original, unique, and quality-driven games coming from DC in the future, then definitely be sure to thwip that like button and subscribe to the channel for even more superhero games videos like this down the line. So to immediately swing right on into this news is that we do have a brand new article from IGN that does go on to highlight some recent statements coming straight from the mouths of the top executives in charge of DC, where most prominently is that DC head James Gunn teases new future for WB Games with some bigger things now in early stages. DC Studios co-CEO and Superman director James Gunn says big things are in store for Warner Bros. Games, but it's going to take a while to see them come to fruition. The comic book bigwig spoke about his plans to expand the DC universe during an interview with Games Radar Plus. As Gunn, co-CEO Peter Safran, and the rest of the DC Studios crew plot a new course for DCU shows and movies, the Superman movie maker says that he has no plans to leave gaming out of the equation, which in literally any other universe I would say is great news. Unfortunately, this is where all of my massive gripes with Gunn's decision making start to come into play, where, to quote Gunn himself, is that there's been some slight movement on different things. We have a couple of little DC games coming out, but we also have talked about, and in early stages of planning, some bigger things. One thing in particular I'm excited about, but it does take time. There's been some changes in Warner Bros. Games, and so we're dealing with new people. Now, those changes that he's referring to have unraveled throughout the last year or so, and have seen WB Games shifting its focus to 4 key franchises: Mortal Kombat, Harry Potter, DC, and Game of Thrones. It's a fundamental change to how Warner Bros. Is looking to the future following massive losses tied to Rocksteady Studios' Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, as well as the underperformance and eventual shutdown of multiverses. And alongside of that is that WB Games head David Haddad left the company in January. And yeah, without a single doubt in my mind, WB Games not only canceling a first first of its kind AAA Wonder Woman game, but also completely shutting down Monolith Productions, who was behind the game, who also invented the insanely revolutionary Nemesis system that we did see from the Shadow of Mordor games, which WB Games for some idiotic reason went on to patent that system and never use it in any other DC or WB Games project ever again, has got to be one of, if not the most moronic decisions I've ever seen within the gaming industry. Just as is the case with all of James Gunn's plans for DC gaming going forward, where Gunn teases things are finally in motion at WB Games, but declined to share what kind of DC projects fans can expect to see in the future. However, Games Radar Plus adds that the director teased that there is a good chance Superman star David Corenswet could reprise his role for a video game. Gunn and Safran shared earlier this year that it will be a couple of years before fans get their hands on the first DCU games. Safran says they've been hands-on when it comes to new projects at studios like Injustice Studio NetherRealm and Batman Arkham developer Rocksteady as they steer DC in a fresh direction. And now we get to what I personally think is single-handedly one of the most aggravating statements I've ever read pertaining to upcoming superhero games, where, to quote Gunn himself, is that we see designs for the projects in their very earliest stages. We talk about those. We talk about when they're talking about what the story might be. We say, well, maybe you want to go this way because we're planning on maybe doing something with this character, and so forth and so on, and help to deal with that.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Man, oh man. There is genuinely so much to unpack within this one article alone that thoroughly analyzes just how atrocious James Gunn's plan is for the future of DC games going forward that I could literally talk about this all day. To reiterate to you all the importance of this is that James Gunn isn't just supervising the future of what the DCU could look like in video game form, but rather every single DC video game project going forward. For example, we just saw the recent reveal of the latest installment within the DC LEGO video game catalog with that of LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight, which, as a diehard fan of the LEGO Batman and LEGO Marvel games myself, this game looks like that it's going to be the best LEGO Batman game ever made, and I for one can't wait for it to release. But even as something as minuscule as a LEGO Batman game in comparison to the much broader scope of the DC Studios production pipeline, James Gunn himself is still overseeing that game's development.
James Gunn is currently overseeing the entire DCU. That includes games. Lego stuff isn't really canon, but has he seen this game? If so, what does he think? And has he made any like outrageous character demands that he wants to see in the game? Or
so yes, he has seen and played the game. You'll see and hear from him in good time. And we haven't had any outrageous demands. I'd love an outrageous demand. I really would. Those are our favorite kinds of demands.
But to get right to the crux of this situation is that I genuinely cannot stand seeing Gunn trying to forcefully implement and intertwine everything within the DC universe in one single canon, especially spanning across different forms of entertainment like that of comics, animation, television, films, and gaming are so vastly different within their individual demographic groups, but this also immensely limits the amount of creativity and freedom that all the individual developers working on these games will be able to incorporate within their own projects, considering that they would try to forcefully make sure that the narrative fits within the grander scope of the broader story that James Gunn is plotting within DC in live action. But more importantly is that James Gunn's statements for DC games is pretty much the exact opposite philosophy that Marvel Games has by purposefully trying to create something new and innovative within each of their individual gaming titles that not only span across different developers from different parts of the world, but also reach into different genres of the gaming medium at large.
That we've been given the great power and responsibility. We were told, make great games. So it doesn't have to exist between TV shows, it doesn't have to exist between films, it doesn't have to exist between comics, even though we're influenced by all these things. We're told, just make your own best game and let your partners, who we've chosen for a reason, to do what they do best.
Yeah.
And if you think that I may be overreacting, I'm not the only one who's concerned, considering that I recently put up a tweet stating how irritated I am with the direction that James Gunn is going for the future DC games. And underneath my tweet, I did receive an official reply from a top-tier game developer who has previously worked on some massively beloved DC games, specifically with the Batman Arkham franchise of Batman Arkham Origins and Batman Arkham Knight of the one and only Del Walker, who, if you're unaware, was a previous senior character artist over at Rocksteady, stating that he felt it was extremely frustrating to read all about Gunn's current vision to intertwine everything from DC games into the wider DCU. As a comparison, imagine if Marvel Games tried to make every single one of their individual Spider-Man games developed by Insomniac, rather than it being its own individual take on the character set in its own original universe. It was instead trying to tie into the canon of the Tom Holland Spider-Man films and continue the story of those movies into the games, without allowing Insomniac to try and do anything creative or originally fresh with the character in their own unique way. Or additionally, imagine if the insanely underrated Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy game by Eidos Montreal, which I honestly think is one of the best Marvel games ever made and is my personal favorite rendition of the Guardians in any form of media, ended up continuing to tell the MCU Guardians story within a video game plot, instead of what we ended up getting, which turned out to be one of the most emotionally impactful Marvel stories I've ever seen in any form of media. Because if Marvel Games ended up going the route as to where DC Games is currently planning on going, then that means that we would have never have seen any of the utterly breathtaking moments throughout any of these superhero games, like this.
No, you're wrong! You are everything I wanted to be! You just threw it away!
And this.
Don't make me kill you! You can't win! Why do you keep fighting?
Because I'm Spider-Man.
Or this.
The Nebula I knew had been twisted into a hateful, vengeful monster thing. One who would never stop unless I stopped her. So I did. I just never expected to survive.
Why didn't you say something?
It's not exactly a conversation starter. Hi, I'm Gamora. I murdered my sister. Can we be friends?
And especially this.
Harry. We are not Harry. We are.
I also think that if Gunn wants to start production on any type of Superman game, utilizing the same live-action actor who portrayed the character on film with David Cornsweet to simply, quote-unquote, voice the character is not at all the same damn thing when it comes to acting for a video game performance, as well as using motion capture. Acting out on screen within a movie and trying to act in a video game setting are two completely different things. But again, the most mind-numbing aspect about this this is that if we were to ever receive a fully AAA standalone Superman game, it would more than likely utilize David Cornsweat's iteration of the character rather than any of the developers working on this potential game to make their own unique version of the Superman character in their own way. Which is, no joke, the most anti-art thing that I could possibly think of. Which makes this entire situation all the more baffling to me, considering that only a month ago we did receive another article relating to Marvel games actually coming from the main man in charge of the MCU himself, of Kevin Feige, who essentially went on to thoroughly praise the massive amount of success that has been garnered from a hugely popular Marvel game with the worldwide phenomenon of Marvel Rivals. Whereas this article from Games Radar went on to say is that MCU boss Kevin Feige says his son feigned interest in a supportive way until he started playing Marvel Rivals. Suddenly, he was asking me to tell him more about Hela. Simply being the head of the Marvel Cinematic Universe does not guarantee that your kids will be into superheroes. Kevin Feige says it wasn't the nearly 40 movies that the MCU has produced that got his own son into Marvel. Instead, he thanks Marvel Rivals for sparking that interest. As the Wrap initially reported, is that Feige says his son only feigned interest in a supportive way for the MCU. Then he started playing Marvel Rivals. Suddenly, he was asking me to tell him more about Hela, tell him more about the Punisher and these other characters. And then he started seeking them out in the shows, which is already an insanely massive accomplishment from everyone over at NetEase and Marvel Games for making such a vivid and robust experience. But the most important thing about this to take away from is this final paragraph from the article. Feige says that Marvel's ability to introduce itself to new fans through different types of media is one of the brand's biggest strengths. TLDR, variety is the spice of life, and Marvel Games is utilizing that to their fullest advantage. Even coming from me personally, despite being a massive Marvel fan, I will be honest in saying that I haven't really watched any of the more recent Disney Plus shows pertaining to Marvel characters. Not only because I've been super busy with the Disney College program, but also because none of the main premises or storylines for those characters have interested me in any way. And the same could also be said for a wide variety of different Marvel and DC fans, where there will be some DC fans out there who will easily go into theaters and watch the brand new Superman movie, but they may not necessarily be a gamer and may not want to continue that storyline from that universe by going into a game's plot. Art isn't a singular medium. Different types of entertainment can impact different types of people in different ways. So trying to directly manage and monopolize everything into being focused into one individual universal umbrella is, for a lack of a better word, absolutely stupid. Especially considering how purely gigantic the DC library is, and the wide array of comics and storylines that have been told within that medium that game developers could pull from. Not to mention that game development as a whole, and even more so within the current year of 2025, takes an absurdly long amount of time. So by the time any type of AAA DC game goes into production, the DC movie side of things will already be plotting out all the future films and TV shows for the next couple years, and trying to cohesively connect all the current development that will be going on for any type of upcoming DC movie, show, and especially a game, all fitting into the one singular narrative universe of the DCU, would pretty much be damn near impossible. And if that wasn't bad enough, we also officially know that one of the current upcoming DC games from Warner Bros. Montreal, who you may know as the developers from the criminally underrated Batman Arkham Origins and the less widely beloved Gotham Knights, we already officially know from them that despite the massive live service flop that was Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League from Rocksteady, and the beyond mediocre Gotham Knights, which did seem to try and implement some type of live service elements within the game, we do know that their next gaming project is going to be another live service title. And all I can say for the team over at WB Games Montreal is good luck with that.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I love the young people.
Listen, I do respect James Gunn as a filmmaker, despite not being the biggest fan of some of his movies. But clearly, it seems like he's much more knowledgeable about the medium of film rather than the much more complicated type of development that goes into making a video game. And while I know for a fact that LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight is going to be a total banger for DC games, I currently have little to no confidence as to what DC and WB are planning for the much more singular entity of the DCU. But I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see as to how all of this will play out. And with all that said, everybody, that's the video I have for all you today, and please let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. What do you think of James Gunn's current statements pertaining to the future of DC and video games? And would you be mad or excited if we ended up receiving a AAA Superman game that just so happened to be also in the same universe as the live-action film? Let me know what you think. Be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay merry, Marvelites, and stay awesome, DC fans. And until next time, peace out.